There's nothing more painful than walking into a place you once called home and no longer being recognized. Malcolm Rhodes sat quietly in his car, the flickering glow of the Freddie's Fry House sign dancing across his windshield like the last breath of an old dream. The faded yellow neon tubes buzzed faintly in the Detroit dusk, shivering as if even they were debating whether to stay lit or give up. He didn't get out right away. One hand rested lightly on the steering wheel, eyes locked on the glass door where the slogan still barely clung to the window. Comfort food with soul. A phrase he once believed in with everything he had. Now he wasn't so sure. Malcolm closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw her, his grandmother, her beat-up pushcart, the cast-iron skillet sizzling over a charcoal flame. She used to say, "Fried chicken done right can heal a bad day." And he believed it enough to build a whole damn restaurant on it. But now, where had that soul gone? A gust of wind swept past the car. Malcolm opened his phone, pulling up the message from one of his oldest customers, an elderly man who'd been coming since the start. "I've been eating at your place since day one. Came in last week, no one smiled. No one remembered my usual. Chicken's still crispy, but it don't taste like family anymore. Freddie's used to feel warm. Now it's cold, like the people." Malcolm drew a slow, steady breath. He hadn't stepped foot inside Freddie's in over 6 months. New location, investor meetings, speaking gigs, the big stuff. And in the meantime, the soul of the place had been slowly rotting from the inside. He pulled his Braves cap down low, slipped into a faded flannel jacket, and tugged his face mask over his nose. His worn-out work boots tapped quietly against the car floor as he stepped out. "Fried chicken saved my life," he muttered. "Now I gotta see if it's still saving anybody else's." Malcolm leaned back in his seat, eyes half closed. But what he saw wasn't the flickering neon outside it, was the soft, golden light of a cramped kitchen from decades ago. He must have been 8, maybe 9. Grandma Freddie was at the stove, wearing her faded blue apron, a towel slung over her shoulder. Her skillet sizzled with oil, and the smell of buttermilk and paprika filled the air. In the corner sat a man with a shaggy beard and sunken cheeks. Malcolm had never seen someone look that hungry. "Baby," Grandma had said, pulling him close. "Watch this." She placed a thigh and a wing onto a chipped ceramic plate, collard greens, a buttered roll. No charge. She handed the plate to the man without asking his name. The man's hands trembled. "You sure?" he whispered. Grandma Freddie smiled. "You don't need a receipt when the Lord tells you to feed somebody." Malcolm remembered how the man took one bite and then started crying. Big, broken sobs over a paper napkin. That was the first time Malcolm learned food wasn't just for filling stomachs. It could patch holes in people. Back in his car, he opened his eyes again, looked at the flickering sign. He wasn't just going back for business. He was going back for her. And so, with the memory of a tear-streaked stranger still warm in his chest, Malcolm stepped out of the car and into the place that no longer remembered him. Malcolm used to think he could manage from a distance, that he could inspire people through Zoom calls and Slack messages. But lately, what he'd been reading had started to knot up his stomach. Google Maps, 3.7 stars. A string of blunt reviews, cold as a freezer. Food's decent. Staff, cold as ice. Ordering feels like begging. Chicken's hot, attitude's not. It wasn't just the typed words that cut. It was the handwritten letter, shaky purple ink on lined notebook paper, from Miss Geraldine Mathers, age 81. One of his very first customers, who'd eaten at Freddie's since day one. "Freddie's used to make me feel seen." A smile. Would you like a refill, ma'am?" "You look lovely today." Now, nobody even looks at me. Malcolm folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his wallet, right next to a worn photo of his grandmother, the first person who ever taught him how to fry a proper southern spiced crispy chicken. This diner had once been a promise that no matter where you came from out of prison, a single mom, a broke college kid drowning in debt, you could walk into Freddie's and find something hot, real, and kind waiting for you. Now, he wasn't so sure anymore. Detroit this time of year was cold, but not in a scary way. No, the real fear came from something else entirely: walking into a place you built with your own hands and pretending you had nothing to do with it. Malcolm pushed open the door at 12:32 p.m., right in the thick of the lunch rush. The smell of frying oil hung in the air, familiar but thinner now, less like love, more like habit. Inside, the plastic chairs still gleamed under fluorescent lights. Paper napkins were pre-folded on each table. The wall mural meant to evoke the buzz of old Detroit neighborhoods was still there, but the colors had faded, like the life had been drained out of it by neglect. Malcolm stepped up to the counter. No greeting. Not even a glance. A young man stood behind the register-braided ponytail, eyes glued to his phone, wearing a red Freddie's Fry House polo. Malcolm stood there for a full 17 seconds before the kid finally mumbled, without looking up, "If you're ordering, just say so." Jalen. Malcolm remembered the name from the staff roster. He kept his voice low, laced with a soft southern lilt. "Let me get a spicy combo number 3 and a sweet tea." Jalen tapped the touchscreen lazily. "Dine, in, or take out?" "Dine in." From the right, a loud pop and snap of gum echoed. A young woman with pale purple curls was chewing like it was a sport. Long acrylic nails tapped the counter, bits of fries stuck to the tips. Brie. She gave Malcolm a glance, then looked away. Behind him, the line stretched longer. No one on staff moved faster. No one smiled. It felt like they were acting in a play they hated, and the audience was a burden. Malcolm stepped to the waiting area near the soda machine. A little boy was struggling to reach a paper cup. His mother, juggling a crying baby, didn't notice. No one helped. From the register, Jalen's voice drifted back low, but clear enough. "Another dude in a busted hoodie. Bet he's from a shelter or something. They come in here, start expecting the world, like they forgot where they are." Bree chuckled without looking up. "We sell chicken, not miracles." Malcolm didn't turn. He didn't flinch. He just stared at the fryer behind the counter. The oil hissed and popped. A single drop jumped, hitting the edge of the pan with a sharp crack. Tiny sound. But to Malcolm, it was the sound of something breaking inside him. He remembered his grandmother, standing in front of a pan just like that. Her apron stained with grease, forehead damp from the heat. She called customers by name. Every plate she served felt like a blessing. Now, this? Malcolm turned and walked out. He stood in front of the building and looked up at the sign. Freddie's Fry House, S 2012. The paint on Est was peeling. But what had really faded wasn't the sign. It was the spirit inside. Malcolm slid into the corner seat by the window, the same one he used to collapse into 10 years ago. Sweat, soaked, wearing an apron with no logo yet, and a heart full of plans way too big for the tiny kitchen behind him. That seat used to be warm with dreams. Now, it was ice. A young woman in a grocery store uniform walked in, towing a toddler clinging to her jacket. She looked tired, scanning for an empty table. She sat, dropped her bag, and waved toward the counter. No one came. 3 minutes passed, then 5, then 8. She stood up, walked to the front, and said, "Could someone get me a cup of water? My son's thirsty." Jalen didn't look up. "Get it yourself. Water's free. Back corner." Back corner behind a line of crowded tables. She picked up her son, muttered an apology to no one in particular, and weaved through the room like a ghost dodging furniture. Not a single person looked her way. No empathy, no eyes. Just hunched shoulders and phone screens. At a table near the register, an elderly man was pulling coinsnickels, pennies, worn quarters from the pockets of his faded coat. He laid out $4 in change gently on the tray, like any sudden movement might shatter something sacred. From behind the counter, Bree's voice floated over, mocking but quiet. "Bet that old guy emptied his whole check for some wings. Probably wants extra sauce too, like it's gonna fill him up." Jalen laughed under his breath. "Let him drink from the sink. cuts costs. Malcolm clenched his jaw, not because of their words, but because no one said anything. Not a customer, not another staff member. Just silence. As if cruelty was just policy now. No one saw each other as people. Just walking ticket numbers, wallets with legs. From the shadows, Malcolm watched a quiet moment play out. Reggie, arms crossed, raised an eyebrow at Isaiah. "All right, tell me which one's which." Isaiah looked down at two silver trays, both holding seasoned flour. He sniffed one, then touched the second. This one's lemon pepper?" Reggie nodded once. "And? This one's the house blend." "You sure?" A pause. Isaiah squinted. 95%. Reggie didn't scold, just patted his shoulder. "You're right. Next time, be 100. Malcolm smiled softly from the back. No shouting, no shame, just the kind of guidance that could change a life. This was what he wanted more of. This was what the fire could be used for. Malcolm didn't touch his tray, didn't sip the tea, didn't bite the chicken. He just left the paid receipt on the table and walked out the front. He circled to the alley behind the Bildinga route he hadn't taken in years. Back in the day, this was where he snuck out for smoke breaks when the pressure in the kitchen got too much. A rusted steel door stood half-closed. The hinges creaked like an old voice calling him home. He pushed it open gently. Inside, the secondary kitchen. Quiet, warmer, off the radar from customers. Ernie stood over a pot of bubbling hot sauce, big ladle in hand, stirring with the grace of someone who still cared. He wore a dark uniform stained from real work. Next to him, a skinny young man, maybe 19 or 20, struggled with the fryer. Gloves too big, movements too cautious. Ernie didn't even turn when he spoke. "Oil ain't hot enough, Isaiah. Gotta be hot on the outside, but still juicy inside. Like people, right? Tough skin, soft heart." Isaiah nodded, nervous but still trying. Malcolm stepped closer, stood by the boiler unit. Now Ernie turned. "I know that stance. That's a Malcolm stance. You back, huh?" Malcolm gave a slow nod. "Not sure this still feels like home." Ernie set down the ladle, peeled off his gloves, washed his hands, then turned toward him. "It's cold out there. Not cause of the weather, but cause of the hearts." Malcolm exhaled. "I heard Jalen. Heard Bree." Ernie nodded once. "Yeah, I hear 'em every shift." Silence. Then, "I used to be hungry, Malcolm. Not diet hungry. Real hungry. Like steal bread from the store so your kid don't cry kind of hungry. Got caught. 6 years inside. Nobody asked if I was still a person after that." Malcolm watched him, bent spine from a prison injury, but posture strong like a pillar. "You were the first person who asked me. You want to cook food that saves somebody? I thought you were joking. But now, every day, I cook like someone out there needs saving." He pointed toward Isaiah. "That kid used to sleep on a park bench. Now he's learning how not to burn a drumstick. Not everyone in here's broken, Mal. But the culture? It's rotting, from the top down." Malcolm turned toward Isaiah. The kid had just dropped the drumstick, his face flushed red. He picked it up, tossed it, changed gloves. He didn't speak, but his eyes said it all. "I know this matters." Malcolm stayed a while longer. Didn't speak. Just stood there, letting the pops of hot oil carry him back to the early days, to the blistered fingers from dredging chicken in batter, to the sweat-soaked teas in the summer heat, to the sound of his grandmother humming while seasoning meat by hand. He closed his eyes and heard her voice, clear as ever. "If you want to keep a fire alive, baby, you gotta light it yourself. Every day. Can't expect someone else to do it." He opened his eyes, not because he was going to cry, but because he couldn't wait anymore. That night, Malcolm didn't go home. He rented a room at a tired old motel on Linwood Ave. Just enough light to see, just enough quiet to think. He placed his phone on the table, stared at the screen. then typed, W. All staff meeting. 9 a.m. sharp. Mandatory. No excuses. No exceptions. I'll speak. You'll listen. M. R. No emojis. No explanation. Just gravity. Enough to stir the stomach of anyone who forgot why they signed up for this in the first place. He leaned back in the stiff motel chair. His fountain pen and legal pad lay open on the desk. He scribbled, "What is Freddie's Fry House? I was once hungry. Who's keeping the fire alive? Who's killing it?" By midnight, he put the pen down, looked up at the stained yellow ceiling like he was speaking to something beyond it. Tomorrow? Who still believes this place is worth fighting for? Outside, Detroit was sleeping beneath the snow. But Malcolm wasn't. 9 a.m. The skies over Detroit hung low and gray, as if the city itself was waiting for something to change. Malcolm Rhodes walked through the doors of Freddie's Fry House no mask. No disguise, no hat, just himself. Unfiltered, undeniable, unapologetically present. Charcoal gray suit, loose tie resting on a crisp white shirt, dark leather shoes tapping softly against the tile. His eyes scanned the room like a lighthouse, beam pausing on every face, every twitch, every bit of unspoken weight in the air. The staff sat scattered most near the front tables. Reggie stood behind the kitchen line, arms folded. Isaiah hunched at the end of a bench, trying not to breathe too loudly. Bree faced away. Jalen bit his lip, his trademark smirk nowhere in sight. Malcolm stood in the center of the floor. No microphone, no podium. He spoke just one sentence, calm, steady, cold. Yesterday, I was the delivery guy. Today, I'm the owner. And I don't see a single ounce of soul left in this place. Silence. The kind that tightens around your lungs and refuses to let go. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a faded receipt, yesterday's placket. He placed it gently on the nearest table. This is the order I waited 15 minutes for. Not because the kitchen was backed up, but because the cashier was glued to his phone. And the drink station? Abandoned. He turned to Bree and Jalen with anger, but with something far heavier. Disappointment. I was that kid once, standing outside a Popeyes, hands out begging a stranger for leftover chicken. Hungry. Ashamed. Cold. I built this place so no one would have to feel that way ever again. His voice cracked barely, but the room heard it. But yesterday, I listened to people I pay. Call our guests a burden. Call them cheap. Say we're not in the business of miracles. He paused. Let the silence stretch until it wrapped around everyone's throat. So I'll ask you this. Who's the real burden here? The mother asking for a cup of water for her kid? Or the staff treating every act of service like it's a prison sentence? No one answered. Not a shuffle. Not a word. Malcolm inhaled. Softer now. I'm not angry. I'm accountable. I've been gone. I let you drift without a compass. I thought this place could run on autopilot. But just because a train keeps moving doesn't mean it's still on the right track. He looked around, making eye contact with every person. This place used to be a kitchen for the soul. Not just for customers, but for us. A place to learn how to stand tall again. A place to start over. So now, I need to know, who still believes in that? A beat. Then Isaiah looked up, said nothing. But in his eyes, I do. Reggie gave a subtle nod. A few others sat straighter. Jalen lowered his gaze. Bree didn't move. Malcolm reached into his bag and pulled out 2 dark-colored folders. He held them up. Folder A, if you want to stay. It means committing. Starting over. It means training in soft skills, customer care, and empathy. Listening to guests. Listening to each other. It means not just standing behind a grill or a register, but inside the fire, and keeping it burning for something good. He raised the second folder. Folder B, if you want to leave. 2 weeks' pay. No questions. No resentment. No shame. This place isn't for everyone. That's not a failure. He placed both folders on the table near the kitchen door. You don't need to decide right now. But by the end of today, I want an answer. The air left the room like someone had unplugged the oxygen. Then, Bree stood. She didn't say a word. She walked over, took folder B, signed her name, unpinned her name tag, folded her uniform neatly, and laid it on a chair. Malcolm didn't stop her. He simply nodded. Jalen stayed seated, hands clasped, jaw clenched. Then a whisper, raw and small. I'm sorry, he said. I forgot what hunger feels like. Malcolm walked over and stood in front of him. Then maybe you're the right one. To remind someone else what it feels like to be treated with dignity. The rush had died down. The lights had dimmed. Jalen found Malcolm near the back exit, where the cold air sneaked in under the door. Hey, Jalen said. Can I talk to you? Just one-on-one. Malcolm nodded. They stepped into the storage room. Shelves of condiments and napkins. Smelled like old fryer oil and thyme. I used to work at a big chain, Jalen said. Fast food. People used to throw things at me, scream over ketchup, spit on the window. He stared at his shoes. I guess I just stopped caring. Thought if I acted cold first, I wouldn't feel it later. Malcolm let that hang for a while. Then said, sometimes we go hard so the world can't hurt us first. But this place isn't the world out there. This is where we try something different. Jalen nodded, wiping his eyes without making it obvious. I want to try again, he said. You already started, Malcolm said. 1 week later. No press release. No viral video. Just a quiet shift like oil, reaching the perfect sizzle point. Freddie's fry house felt different. Not the walls. Not the lights. The way people looked at each other. Isaiah worked the prep station, wearing a new apron. He handled each piece of chicken like it was his final exam. Focused, steady, still made mistakes but never quit. Reggie watched from the back. Didn't hover, just nodded sometimes, like a proud father. At the register, Jalen stood tall. No phone. No eye rolls. An older woman stepped in. Jalen smiled, bowed his head slightly. Would you like mild or hot, ma'am? Around here, everyone gets to choose what feels right. She smiled back. Toothless, honest. The kind of smile that heals things. Near the window, Malcolm sat sipping sweet tea. A young team member approached quietly, slipping a folded piece of paper onto his table. He opened it. Slanted handwriting, shaky ink. The chicken's still good, but today, it tastes like memory. He didn't need to know who wrote it. He just folded it neatly, tucked it into his wallet right next to the photo of his grandmother, Freddie, the woman who started it all over a coal-fired skillet. Outside, Detroit was still cold. But inside Freddie's fry house, the fire was burning again. But the real test came when a familiar soul returned. That Thursday afternoon, the door creaked open, and in stepped Miss Geraldine, 81 years old, wrapped in her Sunday best, topped off with a burgundy beret. Jalen noticed her instantly. He set down his towel, walked over, and extended his arm. Welcome back, Miss Geraldine. We saved your seat. She raised an eyebrow, then laughed. Boy, you remember where I used to sit? Always. He guided her gently to a table by the mural faded, but still standing. He brought her warm lemon water before she even asked. A few minutes later, Isaiah appeared with a tray. Ma'am, he said, standing tall, I cooked this one. I hope it brings something back. Miss Geraldine peered at the plate. Crispy chicken, buttery cornbread, greens that still steamed. She took a bite, closed her eyes, and smiled. This is Freddie's, she whispered. This is what I missed. From across the room, Malcolm watched her smile and something inside his chest exhaled. Not every letter ends in goodbye. Some circle back, like guests coming home. And that warmth wasn't just for customers anymore. It began to spread to hands much younger, and dreams still forming. Sunday afternoon. Closed early. Not for cleaning. For learning. 3 kids stood at the counter, eyes wide. Isaiah showed them how to dredge the chicken. Reggie taught knife safety. Jalen led a session on customer greeting. "Say it like you mean it," Jalen said, "because sometimes that smile is the only good thing in someone's day." In the corner, Malcolm leaned against the wall, arms folded. One little boy, no older than 7, struggled to reach the flour tray, but he wouldn't give up. Malcolm walked over. "Having fun?" The boy looked up, flour on his cheeks. "Yeah, I'm gonna be the boss one day." Malcolm laughed. "That's the plan, kid." He turned to look at Reggie and Jalen, men who once stood where that boy was standing. And now, they were teaching others how to carry the fire. Detroit at dusk had its own kind of light. Not flashy, not bold, just warm, like a gas stove on low heat, keeping a pot of broth gently simmering. Malcolm stood in front of Freddie's fry house, arms crossed, shoulder leaning into the brick wall. The first winter breeze chased a receipt across the empty patio chairs. Above him, the neon sign glowed in soft hues of green and gold. One side of the tube flickered just a little, enough to notice. He'd seen it the first day he came back, and he hadn't fixed it. Someone once asked, "Why don't you replace that bulb? Looks unprofessional." He just smiled. "I leave it flickering, to remind myself that even light needs care if it's going to shine forever." Inside, the sizzle of hot oil sang its quiet, constant song, the soundtrack of a place still alive. Isaiah had just completed his first order without Reggie watching over him. Perfect tray, golden crust, no excess grease, no missing spice. A young customer picked it up, whistling softly as he headed to his seat. At the front, Jalen handed a receipt to an elderly couple. "Please share your thoughts with us, ma'am, sir. The compliments and the critiques both keep us going." The woman smiled, reached over, touched her husband's hand, as if to say, "This place really is warm." Malcolm didn't go inside right away. He stood there, not guarding a doorway with his body, but with memory. One day, he thought, he might not be the one standing here anymore. It might be Isaiah, or Jalen, or someone young, hungry, and hopeful. But when they look up at that sign still glowing, still imperfect, they'll know. It flickered once, almost went out, but someone kept it alive. By hand. Not everyone who walks in with money is a king, but anyone who walks in hungry deserves respect. At Freddie's, they don't just serve meals. They share the thing that once saved their own lives, even if it's just a piece of fried chicken on a freezing winter day. Malcolm looked up at the silver sky and whispered to himself and to the grandmother watching from the photo still pinned by the stove, "The chicken might cool, but the soul of this place, that can never go cold." Then he opened the door, not to inspect, but to tend the fire.